Hello, and welcome back to Better Than Art School. This is the second of two lectures on color psychology. Okay, what emotions do you associate with red? If you ask people on the street or people in your office, or like I do, my students, you get these answers. They're pretty close to it. Anger, pain, violence, guilt, sin. Maybe some of those have to do with the fact that blood is red, but then you also get lust, love, beauty, passion. So it really depends on the context, but you can couple red in a certain image with certain signals of anger or violence, and it'll heighten that effect. Or you could also do the same thing with lust or love and heighten that effect. But in either case, red is kind of this intense emotional color. These are some associations. And in nature, sometimes you have signaling too done with color. So certain frogs might be brightly colored to say, hey, I'm poisonous, don't eat me. Or male birds might say, hey, I'm colorful, come mate with me. Or peppers might say, hey, eat me or don't eat me because I'm this color. What about blue? These are the most common ones you get. You poll people, sad, like the blues, clear-headed, optimistic, pure, calm, expansive, deep, cool, cold. And these are some associations or some things that happen to be blue. Interestingly, as a color concept, blue is late to the party. So if you go back in world literature, you'll hear color concepts like black and white, which aren't pure hue colors, but are color concepts, and red, but you don't hear blue for many centuries later. So in the Iliad by Homer, for instance, they'll talk about the wine dark seas, but they don't say the blue sea, or they don't talk about the blue sky. So that's kind of a curious thing in history. Okay, yellow. These are some most common associations. So cowardly, like yellow-bellied. If you're a cowboy, you might call somebody that. Jaundiced, caution, energy, attention, age, like yellow paper. Sensational journalism, bright, happy, sunny, fortune. These are all associations with yellow. The yellow brick road is kind of on that fortune idea. The highlighter is like calling attention to something. Yellow is, of course, a very bright, attention-grabbing color, so it's going to be used on signs that are saying caution and things like that. And of course, it goes without saying, but if you have your own experiences with blue that are very traumatic, you're probably not going to think of blue as a calming color. Okay, so in the first lecture, I mentioned how these came to be, and there's biologically innate reasons that we have certain color associations. There's cultural reasons, there's personal reasons, and just by being on planet Earth, you know that if there's a lot of green somewhere, it's probably a lush, wet area, and there's probably bodies of water nearby. That's just something we would know just from being on this planet. But then, of course, cultural differences vary widely, and maybe it's because of myth or value or belief, religion, social custom, geographical and historical background of a particular society. Maybe desert societies use colors differently than mountain societies, use colors differently than coastal societies. And here's another example. What color would you mourn in? Some cultures, like the United States, we dress in black. Other places dress in white, dress in red, dress in orange, on and on and on. And 3, personal. So your personal experiences and your personality type. So these are the Big 5, and this is probably the best personality test you can take online. It's called the Big 5 personality test. It spells ocean, if you're trying to have a way to remember it. It's openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. These would affect the way you assign meanings to color. So if you're an extroverted person, you might like really bright colors more than an introverted person who might like more subdued colors, for instance. I first came across this idea from The Happiness Hypothesis, a book by Jonathan Haidt, and he talks about how basically we're like a rider on the elephant. And what he's talking about there is our conscious thought represents a tiny sliver of what our brain does. So our brain regulates our heart rate, it helps us digest food, it responds to things before we have conscious awareness of it, like if you stick your hand on a hot surface. So most of what happens goes below the level of conscious thought. And in thinking about color psychology, just think about how you might have had experiences that you weren't even consciously aware of, or they might have been experiences that happened, when you were only, a young child, or you had some traumatic experience that your brain has tried to clear from your memory, but they still affect the way that you associate colors with certain things. Okay, so here's some color combinations and styles of color that will have different resonances and different associations with different people. So there's pastel colors, and I think most people, if you polled them, I'm not sure about this, but I think most people would say, oh, they associate with Easter, or they associate it with maybe holiday cards or something kind of a little more sentimental, or maybe the Impressionist painters, for instance. You would think of it like that. Chromatic grays. This was a teacher of mine, Ann Gale, briefly, and I like what she said. She said she always paints her paintings with chromatic grays, but she can always identify the color in the gray. So she'll have a green gray or a blue-green gray or a blue gray, but not just a gray that you can't identify the color in. There's another artist that uses gray, chromatic gray palettes really well, Hollis Dunlop. Of course, then there's earth colors, and those are most commonly associated with what are called the Old Masters, really just the Dutch Old Masters of the 15 and 1600s that use these colors a lot. And these colors are called earth colors because they're derived from pigments that are found in the earth. And so that's why they have this kind of warm, earthy feel to them. If you're an interior designer and you're trying to make a room feel comfy but also outdoorsy, maybe you'd use this kind of palette. And then, of course, there's pure saturated color, which cartoons and a lot of modern art, and this is using colors right off the color wheel. And I think maybe we take this for granted now. This is actually a style of color, but it's not a style of color going back into history. It kind of has an artificial modern feel a lot of times, but colors kind of jump out at you. So these are a lot of different ways that different combinations of colors and kinds of colors can affect people's association, either historically or emotionally with something. And of course, marketers know this stuff. So, like I said at the beginning of the first color psychology lecture, color psychology is a gooier, more subjective field of study than something like optics or something like color relativity, which we can demonstrate. This is a little more subjective, but it's true that if every time you see a organic food package, they're probably going to use these brown and green colors or more analogous colors that kind of make you feel like, oh, this is safe for the environment, this is so earth friendly, or something like that. And corporations know that you make your associations with their company on color first, and then on the words, or then on the symbol. So they're going to take great pains in designing something that the colors are what you associate with that company. And they use colors that are going to have different emotional or at least widely polled emotional resonances for people, meaning like more people associate green with nature, so they're going to put on the Girl Scouts brand or something like that. Okay, so all these are ways that color and psychology interact, and there's a baby hippo, and I'll see you next time.